What is going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. So I did want to go over a couple of things once again on the Crew 1. I am also going to be doing probably one more video on the Crew 1 going over the faction events and how I think something like that would actually work in Motorfest. But for this one though, guys, I do want to go over the license plate system on here and if something like this would actually work on Motorfest in the future. Also, would you guys like to see custom license plates on that game? I would say it's probably one of the most requested features ever. Now, the one thing I am thinking about though is if you guys actually had a plate system in Motorfest, what is the exact way you would actually want it? Like, for example, would you guys like to have a point system like this where you had to do like challenges for them? Or would you rather just actually buy the plate then of course customize it that way? I would probably say buying them and most likely doing it that way is like the easiest way for them to add them. Most likely similar to like a buying system in like Unbound where you'd basically buy the plate you want in that said state that you actually are in or something that you actually would like to have on it. And then of course add on to whatever like wording on that plate you would like. But if they were to add something like this, guys, would you like to see this in that game? Would you like to see a bunch of challenges tied to something like a plate in Motorfest? Or maybe they could add the plates into like a special playlist where you could unlock them that way. Like maybe there's going to be a playlist where every single challenges unlock one of these plates. And that way you can actually unlock them that way, but they're also not going to be tied behind like, 50 different things. That way you can unlock them easier. And at least it's also going to give a player something to do when they are going after them. Now, I do know a lot of the plates back then, guys, also were only going to be tied to these said challenges because that was like the number one thing you could do. And there really wasn't like a ton of things you could actually do after going after like the AP. And of course, trying to get as many license plates as possible. Even to this day, I also do not have all of them even before. And that's probably due to the fact that I did not actually feel like getting them. And at the same time, I would probably say a lot of people are most likely not going to want to do 15 to 20 different challenges for a single license plate, and then of course do all of that again to go after the others. And there's also going to be the fact of Motorfest having a smaller map than the Crew 1 and the Crew 2 did have before. For example, guys, for me, one of the biggest things I pretty much did back in the Crew 1 was basically only go after all of the AP challenges. And besides that, I would most likely do some races here and there, but back then, guys, in that game, making money was honestly a pretty big annoying challenge in itself. And I also remember making a lot of money back in the Crew 1 before definitely took a lot longer than it does now. For example, guys, back in the Crew 2, you could obviously make a lot of money quick. And that was also due to the fact of being able to put all of your icon points on making money. And also doing long events that would pay around $500,000 on a run. Which, by the way, the Crew 1 basically had none of those type of events, so the biggest thing you could do is basically farm some money back then. And then, of course, once you were actually done farming some money, you would probably then jump in and go after like a license plate you most likely wanted. Something like maybe like a Montana or even like maybe a Missouri plate. That way you could have that on there to like represent where like you lived or something like that. But I do feel like spending all that time to get a plate where you cannot even change like the letters on that thing is probably not going to make anybody want to actually do it. So I would say, guys, most likely adding the plates into like this store itself or like the customization menu. Or who knows, maybe they can add it into like a vanity, even though that would probably not make that much sense. It would probably be easier to have it in like the customization part. That way you can then add like the plate you want. Also then add like the letters to it and of course have that customized to the player itself. Now one way they could also do this though is what if they maybe had like challenges set to it in like a playlist. Let's say, guys, you are doing like playlist challenges, maybe you can get a plate from them. Now there is obviously going to be over 50 plates you can get. And I also want to mention, by the way, they probably shouldn't do only the United States for like the plate system as it was back in the Crew 1. That was of course going to be based on like another version of the US, so I guess it would probably make a lot more sense then. Now, guys, the Crew is going to have a lot of players all over the world, so being able to put like different plates on that vehicle from like even like maybe in Europe or different countries would probably be awesome. And not only that, you could probably meet a lot of people doing so. Like if you were driving around and you ended up seeing them running like a European play or even like a Mississippi one, and then boom, you guys start talking and all of a sudden you're starting to do like crew challenges and stuff like that. So it could also be a really great thing socially for the crew if they did actually add like a plate system to this game. Now the biggest question is, guys, how would you like to see this being added into Motorfest? Like, is there a specific way you guys would like to see a system like this added? Or would you just like to see like the old-fashioned way of like even having it like it was an Unbound, where you could basically just go in and like add the plate to your vehicle, buy that said plate for like maybe like 1,000 or 2,000 bucks, and then of course customize like the lettering on it? I would honestly say basically either way would probably work. Now, if they were to add like challenges and stuff like that to this game for them, I do feel like having like a separate playlist of challenges where you could actually unlock the plates that way might honestly be like a decent way to do so. Like, for example, maybe you have to do like a certain amount of races, maybe like 10 or 15 times, and then of course you would unlock a step for something else for it. Almost similar to like a story that was in the Crew 2 before, but of course it wouldn't be as advanced, but also a lot easier to complete them. And that way you can actually do something but also get money and XP from it. I really would like to know what you guys think about this in the comments below. Like, I do feel like something like this could work, but at the same time, I do feel like a lot of players are most likely not going to want like a new complicated system, which I do understand though, because that way they can actually add like new vehicles into the game, but also focus on like different issues it may have. And of course, also maybe add like a bunch of new PvP modes into it, which by the way, I am going to be making a video about the PvP in the game currently, and how I think they can actually make it that much better in Motorfest. Like, this game really does have so much potential, guys, for different stuff. I do know we're also only going to be around 3 months into this game's life cycle, so I honestly cannot wait, guys, and I am so dang excited for the future of this game. I really do feel like the potential is going to be insane. Like, not only can we see something like a plate system, we are most likely going to see like a map expansion and so much more. I would like to know your thoughts on this, guys. Do you think a plate system would work? And I do feel like they could add something like this into this game, but the biggest question is, how can they make this less complicated? I also do want to mention, by the way, guys, I am going to be doing around one more video for the Crew 1 with one of its main features. That is actually going to be the main faction races in that game, and how I think something like that may end up working in Motorfest.